Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. This video is the second in a series that I'm doing on adding some pieces to my spring and summer and holiday wardrobe. And today I have two pieces to show you. Both are knits. One's a pair of pants and the other is a t-shirt with a little bit of a twist to it. Before I jump into what I've made, what I am wearing is a Cashmere Concord tee that I made last spring. And I picked this today because it's such a beautiful spring green color. Now, I made this top about this time last year. And after I made this top, I went to a Ron Collins workshop, and Ron helped me to finesse the fit because I needed to add some extra fabric to the arm side, drop it down a little bit. So subsequent makes using this pattern fit a little bit better, but I still like the top. If you're interested in the changes that I made, I'm going to link that video up here. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is the second in a series on building my wardrobe for spring and summer, and for this trip that my sister and I are taking very soon. If you missed the first video, it is also linked up here. In that video, I showed you my inspiration, and I kind of did my own little version of a mood board that showed the colors that I was thinking of and several patterns that I had in mind, and also a bunch of fabric that I'd already purchased and was planning to use. Let's start with the pants. These are designed to be super comfy and easy to wear, and I thought they would be wonderful for travel because, well, they're knit, so they're easy to wear, they're easy to pack, and hopefully they look a little bit stylish. The pattern that I decided to use was the Fresh Press Patterns James Pant. And this pattern is designed for knits like Ponte, and it's a pair of knit pants with an invisible zipper in the front. That's what makes them a little bit different. There is a waistband as well, but it's the invisible zipper, not just a pull-on pant. The shaping is supposed to be a little bit like leggings, but a little more comfortable leggings. And I found that the legs were not at all close fitting like a legging. In the pattern instructions, they tell you how you can turn these pants into boot cut. And I was considering that, but I measured the bottom of the pant leg and I knew that they would be wide enough for me, not too skinny, so I didn't use the boot cut option. I didn't have any fabric around that would be suitable as a toile for a Ponte pant. So, although I used the top down center out method to fit these, I did my cheater version again. Now, if you don't know what top down center out is, there are some people who explain it much better than I do, and I've linked their videos down below. It's a really great way to fit pants that's a little bit less confusing. So I did the fitting using the pants themselves. I added extra to the sides and to the top. And in the end, after I'd done my fitting, which took about 45 minutes, I took a fair bit off the sides because I'm shaped like a rectangle. And then I added some at the top for my waist because it's super high and it keeps climbing. And then I added some length as well, as I have a long inseam. The instructions for the pattern are brief but clear. The pattern designer comes from an industrial background and has included a couple of tips to help you sew these more efficiently. One of the tips that she has that I liked is the outer side seam. It's the first seam that you sew, and she has you top stitch it right away. So you sew that seam, you top stitch it, and then you go on with everything else. And it really makes the leg look nice and crisp and a little bit more ready to wear than homemade, not me made, because me made is great, but sometimes some of my things look a little homemade. There was only one part of this pant that gave me any problems, and that was the invisible zipper. I know how to sew invisible zippers. I haven't sewn a lot of invisible zippers in knits, however. And I knew that it would be helpful to stabilize the fabric so that the zipper would go in a little bit more easily. And I was using a walking foot for a lot of the sewing, but I couldn't use the walking foot for the zipper, of course. I decided to stabilize the fabric and use some stay tape, fusible stay tape. So I added that, took my time and fused it really well, went to put the zipper in and realized I had used steam seam, not stay tape. And steam seam, if you haven't used it, it's a fabulous notion to have around, but it's sticky on both sides. The stay tape was going to be sticky on one side and just add stability, but this product stuck everything together and made the zipper flat when I pressed it. So it doesn't have that nice softly folded edge that looks like a soft seam. Instead, it is like a big fat thick seam. Thank goodness I used an invisible zipper that was the same color as the pants, because sometimes I won't worry so much about that. Now, because I had messed that up, I was also annoyed with myself, and I just didn't even bother to perfectly align the waistband at the front. So this is what it looks like at the front. It's not invisible at all. The only saving grace is that when I wear these, I will always be wearing a top over them, so nobody will notice them. I've worn these pants a couple of times now. They're super comfortable. I love this fabric. So nice to work with, and it pressed up beautifully. The pants fit. They're not loose-fitting knit pants. I sewed them so they fit through my stomach. Not tight, but they fit. I've never had pants before with an invisible zipper in the front, and I was a little bit concerned when I wore them out to a meeting that had a dinner, and I sat in them for a long time, and I thought, oh, I've had dinner. These feel really kind of tight. I went to a sewing meetup on the weekend and spoke to a woman who's a sewing instructor with a great deal of experience, and I said, I made these, and it's got this invisible zipper in the front. I'm a little concerned. And she said, oh, Janine, don't be concerned. New nylon invisible zippers don't split open away the old ones used to years ago. So I hope she's correct because I like them and I want to wear them and I want to take them away with me and I don't want the zipper bursting. I don't think they will. It's just a different technique that was new to me. Pants then are project number 1. I can check that off on my list for this holiday. Okay, so I'm looking at this video as I'm editing, and the pants are falling down on me for some reason. When I was fitting them, the waist was staying up, but now clearly the pants are falling down because the crotch, you can see, is super low, and there are way more bags in the back. So we're going to have to do a little more work on the fitting here. Now the knit top. This one I'm pretty happy with. I used a tried and true pattern, which is Butterick 6848. It used to be a McCall pattern. I'm going to put both numbers down below for you. This is a Palmer plush pattern, and in the past I've spent a fair bit of time fitting it, so I'm happy with it. And the way that I have fit this for me is I've added a bust dart, and I've made it so that it doesn't really have a lot of negative ease, if any negative ease. It's kind of loose fitting, and I've used it for several, well, at least a couple of tops that I want to be a little more loose fitting, where I don't want them tight. And that usually comes down to the type of fabric. And the fabric that I used for this is a lightweight, very drapey cotton spandex. It's right here. And I bought this last summer at a clearance sale. I think I got it from Rick Rack, end of the bolt kind of thing. And I thought it would be very nice for this, and the pattern would work quite well with this fabric because it isn't too tight fitting. There were two things that I wanted to change on this pattern to make it feel a little more current to me. The first was adding a little bit more height to the sleeve. This pattern has set-in sleeves and there's some gathering on them. So if you wanted to add a little bit more height to the sleeve, as I did, you can add some to the sleeve head. That's all I did. I just added about 1/2 inch at the top, and of course I curved it up and around and gathered it. And there's a smidge more gathering at the top of the sleeve head, which I like. The bigger change that I wanted to make was to add some ruching to the sleeves. I've seen this several places, and I like it. It's a little bit of interest on a pretty basic top. Since this fabric is quite lightweight, I knew that it would ruche well. Now, adding ruching is pretty simple. There are a bunch of different tutorials out there. I found one that I liked and I saved, and I'm going to link that one down below. Basically, you add a placket on the inside of the sleeve, so the outside edges of it, not the bottom, sides and the top, and then you sew a line of stitching in the middle, and that becomes a channel for whatever you choose to use to ruche. In my case, I decided to use a piece of twill tape because it was quite lightweight. I added the ruching on the insides of the sleeves. I've got pictures of this I'm going to pop in. Then I threaded the twill tape through and I ruched it up, and I liked it. The one thing I did not consider when I was doing this, and this hit me quite a while later when I was finishing the sleeve, I hadn't hemmed the inside of the ruching, my panel for the ruching, which meant that it was going to be just open on the inside, and that wasn't going to work because I had had the ruching go right down to the bottom of the sleeve hem. Or I could just make the ruching permanent, meaning there are no ties that I can pull to change the amount of ruching, and then just hem over everything and seal the ends of the ruching and also enclose the ends of the tape into the hem. That's what I chose to do. So this is the inside, this is the ruching there, and this is just enclosed in the sleeve hem. I played around with the amount of ruching that was there before I decided the length of the twill tape before I sealed it up. And I made it tight enough that you could see there was ruching, but not so tight that it was always going to be pulled up really tight. On this pattern, there isn't a lot of extra ease in the sleeves. So the ruching worked out quite well because it stays up on my arm. The other thing that's a benefit of a little bit tighter sleeve is this year you see a lot of stuff where people are pulling up sleeves or rolling up sleeves, and that's how they're wearing things. These sleeves are tight enough that I can pull that up and have the ruching appear to be more prominent and the sleeves don't fall down. One other little problem with this top that you will have probably noticed is that the front neckband isn't perfect. I've traced this pattern off, and it appears that I got the angle off a little bit at the neck. I've got it kind of softly curved instead of a nice crisp point. And I had to kind of mess around with the neckline because it just wasn't lying right. So I have to retrace the pattern piece so this doesn't happen again. The top turned out really well. I'm super happy with this. I like the ruching on it, and it was just right for this weight of fabric because it's not too heavy. This was just such a fun little hack, and it reminds me of why it's important to have a few TNTs where you can make a few changes, spend some time on those design updates that you want to do, and then the rest of it you know how to sew really well, and it's easy and you know it's going to fit. This pattern will remain as one of my TNTs, and this top is just going to be, I think, a spring staple. It kind of feels like secret pajamas. So that's where we are at the end of part 2 of my spring, summer, holiday sewing wardrobe for 2025. One piece I absolutely love. The other piece I very much like, but I have to improve my technique. I have 2 pieces of fabric on the cutting room table right now. Not sure exactly which one I'm going to cut out, but I'll give you a little hint. What I'm making is part of Sew April Blouse 2025, which is going on this month here on YouTube. So that probably gives you a pretty good idea of what I'm about to sew. I'll be back with that in a few days. Fingers crossed. What about you? Are you sewing anything for the coming season, whether it's spring, summer, or fall, winter? And are you seeing any ready-to-wear design details that you might like to try to incorporate in your sewing? I know all of us look at things in stores and say, I can sew that. But I think that a lot of these things we can sew. Maybe we can inspire each other. If you enjoyed this video, I'll hope you'll hit the like button. And if you're not a subscriber, you can click on the subscribe button too. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was great to see you. And if you enjoyed this video and you're new around here, you might like this one, which includes things that I made for a previous spring holiday. Take care, and I'll see you soon.